In the heart of Kenya lies a piece of paradise where wildlife still abounds. In this pristine sanctuary, some of the world's most magnificent creatures live unmolested, as they used to, before the bullet and the plough. Dr. Tom DeMar is a wildlife veterinarian whose clinic is this living laboratory. In a country where nature is under siege, he's taken on an ambitious challenge to forge a new model for conserving Africa's vanishing wildlife. It's called Old Jogi, 60,000 acres of savanna, 26 miles north of the equator. This vast estate is privately owned and carefully protected. The plains and forests teem with wildlife. It's a Noah's Ark, floating in the shadow of Mount Kenya. Just 40 years ago, much of East Africa was like this, lush, prolific, free from human pressures on the land. Today, wild Africa survives only as biological islands. In national parks, reserves, and magical places like Old Jogi. Hundreds of species live here, some like zebras in abundant herds, while others, like the black rhinoceros, are among the last survivors of their kind. But Old Jogi is much more than just a refuge for exotic beasts. It's also a treasure trove of secrets about life itself, how plant and animal, predator and prey, coexist as balanced strands in an elegant web. As the resident wildlife vet, Dr. Tom DeMar treats everything from baby baboons to ailing elephants. He left a conventional practice in America to take on a daunting task, getting Old Jogi involved in conservation.
I look at my role here sort of as an ecosystem doctor, not just an animal doctor. The animals are an integral part of this ecosystem, and if the ecosystem is not well, then the animals won't be well. So it's something that I can have effect on, to put my fingers on the pulse of this landscape, learn about it, and care for it.
Conservation work started here in 1982, when Old Jogi's anonymous benefactor acquired 4 critically endangered black rhinos. At the time, hunting and poaching were rampant. In less than a decade, black rhino populations had plummeted from 70,000 to about 3,500. A quarter of Old Jogi was fenced off to create a reserve, where it was hoped the rhinos would go forth and multiply. The rhinos heeded nature's call, and before long, their offspring were being shipped out to make a splash in the gene pool elsewhere.
There are now 21 rhinos that are part of Old Jogi. 7 of these have already been sent to other reserves to join larger populations around Kenya. In addition, we also have 3 white rhinos, and we're hoping to repeat the breeding success with the white rhinos that we've had with the black rhinos.
But captive breeding is only part of the battle. Endangered animals also need a safe place to live. A crucial part of Tom's job is spreading the conservation message. Surprisingly, many Africans never see the exotic animals for which their land is so famous. At Old Jogi, students from the local school get a hands-on encounter with wildlife.
We have these animals, and all these animals are orphans. And they've come as orphans from different places, right? Some of them, their mother died. Sometimes their mother or father got injured. Yes? And we bring them here and then we raise them. And a lot of these animals, once they're raised, we're going to let them go. So they go back to the wild where they came from. They need to live out in the wild. So what you see here is a lot of young animals. So we're going to feed some of them on the bottle. How you like that, huh?
Rafiki is a 1-year-old white rhino who was rejected at birth by his inexperienced mother. He's thriving at the orphanage and making an impression on people who may help determine the fate of his species.
I don't expect to see rewards in the short term. It's going to take a while, quite a while, for that to happen because it's a long-term problem and it's going to take long-term solutions. So maybe a couple of years to meet one of these kids down the road who will remember his talk with the animals, that will be the reward. That is what I found in the past in some of my experiences, and maybe that will happen here.
Much of Tom's time is spent scouting the reserve, checking the landscape's vital signs.
I don't see that many patients. You know, wild animals get sick, they turn into someone's breakfast. That's the law of the land here. But when they die, what are they dying from? Do they die of natural causes? What are those natural causes? We know very well what dogs and cats and horses and cows die from. We have very little understanding of what are wildlife dying from.
Got a few white spots in his liver.
When Tom finds a dead animal before a predator does, he performs an autopsy in the field.
Nothing serious. Take a piece of the liver now.
Monitoring the health of wildlife is a new frontier. What's normal or abnormal in the wild is often a mystery. As an unwitting organ donor, this impala helps Tom shed a little light on nature's secrets in untamed Africa. Old Jogi is vast, and to see the big picture, Tom DeMar rides the range in a Piper Cub. From the air, he surveys wildlife on both sides of the estate, the open ranch and the fenced-in reserve.
This ecosystem harbors the second largest concentration of free-ranging wildlife in Kenya, which is an incredible amount of animals, an incredible amount of biodiversity. We have the ability to look at these and to try and figure out what are the forces acting within this ecosystem.
For grazing animals, life is a tightrope walk between scrounging enough to eat and becoming a meal yourself. Although living in a herd affords safety in numbers, earning a living on the savannah is a risky business. But every second a gazelle spends playing the field or bringing up baby exposes it to mortal danger. The most mysterious and captivating residents at Old Jogi must be the leopards, whose favourite meal is milk-fed fawn.
Leopards here in Kenya are one of the feared animals. They hunt at night. You find their tracks, but you rarely see leopards, and yet the people fear them very greatly.
They're the stealth bombers of the savannah. While most other big cats attack by chasing, leopards silently steal to within meters of their victim and then pounce. they lead a playboy's life. Days spent lounging in the shade or melted in the sun, digesting their victims from the night before and dreaming of those to come.
There's a distinct conflict between the people who are trying to raise a few head of goats and sheep and the leopard, because goats and sheep are just about the right size for a leopard to take. And the leopard sneaks in, kills one, then leaves. It's kind of like the nighttime phantom.
You can see, even though, he's a black leopard, but you still see the spots on him, right?
When a goat thief is caught red-handed, justice is usually swift and lethal. However, 3 leopard convicts have been given a reprieve at Old Jogi and issued new identities as ambassadors for their species. The reformed cats are kept in a large enclosure and used as educational tools for showing what leopards are really like. Keeping a wild animal in captivity means taking over its medical file. Getting the patient to come see the doctor calls for a little ingenuity.
It's time to vaccinate Whiskey, one of our leopards, and the only way to catch him, to get the vaccine into him, is to catch him in this trap during the night. So Kimani, assistant warden's putting some meat on, and the trap's big enough so that he won't get any part of him caught in the door when he's trying to have a little snack. And we hope to catch him during the night. In the morning we'll vaccinate him. So we'll see what happens. Poli poli.
For Dr. Tom, on a medical mission with his dart gun, bumping into his neighbors is a special treat.
Oh, rhino. We got rhino here. There are 3 white rhinos here on our right. They're getting up. They've just been taking a nap under a tree here. No problem, boys and girls. I'm not doing anything today. So they'll probably just mosey on back into the shade and have another snooze, particularly once we leave. Come on, buddy. Come on, buddy. Off you go. Go follow the girls.
Yeah, I drive through the reserve every day, and finding a rhino crossing your path or seeing one at a water hole is just an amazing feeling, because for me, this is what it's all about.
No animal embodies the decline of African wildlife more tragically than the elephant. The largest animal walking the earth, it's also one of the most threatened. Elephants used to range freely across most of Africa, but the decimation of their herds has been catastrophic. Controls on the ivory trade and anti-poaching measures have bought them a little time. But with increasing pressure in many countries to resume culling, the elephant's future is far from secure.
It is remarkable to see them come in. One day at the beginning of the rains last year, I came across a rise, and there was 120 elephants moving in the valley below me as one solid unit. The emotion that evokes is just incredible. The other side of elephants is that they appear to be quite destructive to the environment. After 300 elephants have been on the ranch, you see trees torn down everywhere. But that is what the elephants do. That's part of their role here in this ecosystem. They prevent too much brush from coming in. They leave the grasslands open so the gazelle can come in. They tear down the trees so the termites can have something to live on. They're responsible for planting a lot of trees. We know of over 20 species of trees that need to pass through an elephant's gastrointestinal system in order to germinate. Otherwise, the seeds are useless lying on the ground. They seem to wreak a lot of havoc, but they are without a doubt one of the forces that created this ecosystem and one of the integral parts of this delicate balance.
Whiskey the leopard has taken the bait, and now it's time for his shot. Vaccinations don't win Tom many friends. Immune for another year, Whiskey doesn't need to be shown the way out. Some of Tom's patients seem a little more grateful.
Magoo, one of our resident babies, she's a 5-month-old Grant Gazelle who sustained a fracture of the right front leg. See, it's a pretty nasty fracture with 2 large pieces and a whole lot of little pieces. Of course, she's a wild animal. She doesn't tolerate too many things on her, nor too many people touching her. There's a little bit of a scab back here, but that's from the old splint.
Okay. How's the foot look? Is it a little bit too swollen, or does it look good?
No, it's actually less swollen than it was before. A little bit of hair loss here, but that's okay. That was from the initial swelling. No, it's actually loose right in here at the edge of the cast. It's okay. Working with wild animals is always hard. You're never quite sure how they're going to react. One knows that, horses are delicate and cows are tough. But with wild animals, you're never quite sure how tough the patient is. How much will the patient tolerate in terms of infection, in terms of broken bones. I've had monkeys with, all of their intestines hanging out that were dirty, been dragged in the cage. And we applied the regular surgical principles. We cleaned everything up and sewed it back up, put it on antibiotics, and the animal survived. Although I had given it a very poor prognosis at the time.
Although Old Jogi is far from civilization, its veterinary clinic is one of the best in Africa.
So do you see any banded neutrophils?
Tom and his animal health technician take a close look at Magoo's blood to see how she's fighting her infection. For her and Old Jogi's other residents, the prognosis is good. When you're taller than a 2-story building, you can truly look down your nose at everyone else. At Old Jogi, herds of reticulated giraffe stride across the savannah with a regal air. Their fellow grazers rely on them as walking watchtowers. With the biggest and highest eyes around, giraffes are always the first to see danger on the horizon. It's a long way from head to hoof, so the giraffe needs industrial strength circulation. Its heart weighs 10 kilograms and beats twice as fast as a human's. Giraffes are famous for their friendly disposition. Being so well endowed, their favorite pastime is, of course, necking. Giraffes once roamed the entire continent, but by 1900, hunting had made them nearly extinct. Today, although they're recovering, fewer than 100,000 survive on just 10% of their former range. At Old Jogi, there are giraffes on both sides of the fence, free-ranging on the ranch and within the fenced reserve. For Dr. Tom, it's a great case study in wildlife management.
All around the world, you have populations living in biological islands due to fences or due to a small population surrounded by humanity. And we need to know how to manage these populations because we've caused them and we are now responsible for them. We need to know what effect the isolation is having on a genetic level, on a nutrition level. Are they getting the minerals that they need? On a disease level, are we concentrating disease? What is the disease frequency? All of those factors will play a role in the health of the population within that island.
To gather precious genetic data, Tom goes on safari with his trusty biopsy darts.
What we'd like to try to do is get close to them, close enough to try and fire a dart that will take a skin plug. And then the dart will fall out, and the giraffe will run away unharmed, and we'll recover the skin plug.
and be able to collect some DNA from that for genetic analysis.
A little bit more. Okay, stop.
These samples will eventually go to the United States, to a laboratory run by a colleague of mine, who will then be able to do DNA testing. And we hope to compare DNA from giraffe and impala and zebra on the inside of the fence versus those on the outside of the fence. And we're really looking to see, can we tell a difference after 16 years? Is there a change in the DNA? And that will give us our first benchmark as to maybe the effect of the fence.
Why am I a veterinarian and not a human doctor? It's because I care more for animals than humans. Humans can take care of themselves. They make a mess of their own lives. That's their problem. With animals, they may not have that luxury. And since humans have so much impact on all of animal life, all around the world, it is humanity's responsibility to take care of the animals. Everything I do on a daily basis, from writing a letter to treating a leopard to just vaccinating to collecting samples to organizing for school groups, all has a goal that is towards the big picture of ecosystem conservation.
There are species of animals that will disappear despite everyone's best efforts. And there are ecosystems that will go down or will be used for other things than the wildlife that was once on them. We can still try to preserve what's left and hope that nature will keep the cycle going if we can preserve enough parts of it.